Today, I've had the pleasure of chatting with Dr. Sandra Scheinbaum. She trains people to become functional medicine health coaches and helps practitioners and businesses hire them because she believes that health coaches are the key to combating chronic disease and reducing healthcare costs. She is also in her 70s and can lift like 150 pounds. And we're going to dive into ageism in medicine and how, when you're over 50, all of a sudden you're treated like you're on the decline. It was something like $63 billion were spent on ageism, on medications that people didn't need, or because they were treated as if they had a health condition when they didn't. Just because you're over 50 or over 60 does not mean that you have cognitive decline. It does not mean that you're going to get cardiovascular disease. It does not mean, as she will so vividly describe, does not mean that you cannot still do a handstand in your 70s. You have the power to change your health right now. And just because you haven't done it in the past does not mean that you can't start today. So we're going to have a great conversation about longevity, about ageism, about health coaching. So welcome, Dr. Sandra. Well, welcome, Sandra.
Well, thank you. It is great to be here, Tricia.
I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you for showing up. We have a lot to talk about today. And I have been looking forward to this interview because I want to talk about something that we don't talk about much in medicine. And that is, and we're going to talk about all sorts of things, I'm sure. I know you're a wealth of knowledge, but I want to start by talking about ageism in medicine because I was looking at the statistics, and granted, they range anywhere from 25% to 95%, but they're talking about people over 50 experiencing ageism in medicine. And there was a stat, it was nuts. It was like an estimated $63 billion annually associated with ageism because you're given all these medications that you don't need simply because you're over 50. You know, it's that age old, oh, you're 65, we better get you on a statin to prevent heart attack and stroke, and people speaking to you as if you're cognitively declined. So let's open by this. How young are you?
I just turned 75. So
No,
so
I, age is not a number. It's a feeling, right? So talk to me. Have you experienced this ageism?
oh, absolutely, without a doubt. And I want to preface my remarks by saying that I feel better today than I did when I was much younger. When I was in my 20s, I was binging on sugar. I was so weak. I had no muscle, literally no muscle, because I didn't work out. And then when I did start working out in my 30s, all I was doing the aerobics. I didn't do strength training and made all kinds of mistakes in what I was eating. And now I feel better and I have more energy than I did when I was years younger. But the medical community does stereotypes. So I don't go to a primary care doctor because the last time I went, which was so many years ago, I don't even remember now. Okay. But the only thing they wanted to talk about, well, do you have a grab bar? Do you have a grab bar in your bathtub? Have you had your flu shot? Have you had your shingles? That was it. And I just said, I don't need this. And so I focus on the importance of mindset. And so I don't wake up every day thinking how old I am. I just think today's going to be a good day and what I want to accomplish and looking towards the future. But so many of my contemporaries don't do that. And they have a mindset that aging is awful. It sucks to get old. And they're focusing on what's wrong with them. And I love to focus on what's right.
But they're told that. I mean, if we look at, even
Yeah.
when we look at perfectionism and we look at people who are really driven, and this kind of dates back to when they were kids, were they trying to impress someone? Were they trying to have self-worth? There's all these patterns that build in our subconscious to create what we do. And if someone is in an abusive relationship or abusive childhood and they're told they're nothing, they think they're nothing. If they're told they could do better, they try and do better. So if we're going to the doctor, right, I'm going to be 50 next year, right? So if I'm going to the doctor and they're like, oh, yeah, well, this is when it all starts to decline, like your life sucks, we're going to believe it. And that's what worries me because 50 is not what it used to be. 74 is not what it used to be. I mean, yeah, I've seen you lift. How much weight do you lift? I mean, and by the way, people, Sandra's like tiny. Like I'm 6 feet tall. She like comes up to my waist. She's adorable. But
Thank you.
how much do you lift? Because I mean, you're crazy in the gym. You're amazing.
So lately, I got into this very late, like in my
Yeah.
70s, because I grew up in an era where women did not lift weights.
Yeah.
Those areas of the gym were no-go zones for women. Smith machine, I mean, you see these guys, that's for weightlifters. We don't do that. I took years and years of yoga, Pilates, dance, and I still do. I love
Yeah.
those, but that's not what only thing you need to build muscle.
Mhm.
So I got seriously into building muscle in my 70s, and what I found was that I'm stronger than I thought I was. So I started to do deadlifts, which I had no idea what, and I do it with a hex bar because
Yeah.
the large barbell is actually too big for me to balance it. So I like the hex bar
Yeah.
to do the hex bar deadlift. And so I started out, and I was thrilled that I could lift my own body weight, which I'm like 90 pounds. Okay, I'm there. Now my next goal will be 100. So I can do 100. And then I went up to 120, then 130. And then I decided, well, I'm going to get one of these at home because sometimes in the gym, either it's in use or these big guys would leave it with like these 200 pounds on it. And I couldn't lift the plates to get it off. So I thought, okay, I'll just have it in my home where I can have it accessible whenever I
Yeah.
want to. I take a break, exercise snack. So yeah, so the other day I did 150, and actually now I'm going to the fitness store to get more plates so that I can go up to 155. So and I'm hopeful that I can do. I love to have goals, and not that,
Yeah.
oh, I'll never lift 200. My goal is to one day lift 175 and then 200 and then pull-ups. So pull-ups, I always had that week. Being able to do a pull-up was always
Yeah.
difficult, and so working on that, and it's encouraging to see gradual progress along the way. So
Yeah.
assisted pull-up and needing less and less weight to do the assisted pull-up, but dead hangs are something that I've been working on, and seeing small steps. So I started, and I was excited when I did a minute dead hang. Well, then I went to a minute and 15 seconds, and now oh, yesterday I did a minute and 20 seconds. Wow, yeah. So it's exciting to see those small steps toward that are progress, and focusing on things that are essential, like grip strength, like being able to pick up heavy things, like
Mhm.
having lower body strength. So leg presses, for example, I'm working on as well. So
A lot of
yeah.
people are afraid
Oh,
to
they're
go
so afraid. Yeah.
do this. So why weren't you afraid?
Yeah, because I have a positive mindset.
Ah,
I have a sense that,
yes.
and I don't come to things thinking I could hurt myself because I have learned proper technique. And that's critical. So whether it's working with a trainer, and I find that each type of movement, the principles apply. So you and I both love dance. Well,
Mhm.
dance, and I do ballet, and it's all about staying pulled up and activating your core.
Yeah.
And in Pilates, it's the proper form. So proper breath, like from yoga. So I will bring all of those strategies
Mhm.
into like doing a deadlift. Okay, am I arching my lower back? Do
Yeah.
I have my core pulled in? Am I plugging my shoulders into my back? So
Mhm.
acknowledging all of those different strategies from different types of movement, and then making sure I'm warmed up. So I'll always start with like lifting lift 100 pounds, and then I'll move
Yeah.
up. So I keep adding more and more plates, but in one session. So doing that, as well as having a sense like, yes, I can do it. And I
Yeah.
put on encouraging music, that
Yeah.
the sound that really, really helps. But I think what I hear people getting back to, how doctors have a mindset, like they'll say, "Oh, I can't lift heavy because I have arthritis. I'll hurt my back. I don't have, I have pain here. And I
Mhm.
have weak knees." Like in my ballet class, there's a bunch of women say, "Oh, we can't do jumps. We'll hurt our knees." But jumps are the way that you build bone strength, and you actually strengthen that way. So
Yeah.
focusing on the advantages, like I'm going to do this so that I will not get injured, that I will not
Mhm.
fall and have problem getting up off the floor. So it's that kind of mindset. But many healthcare professionals will unwittingly instill those fears in people,
Yeah.
like, oh, you better be careful because you have osteoporosis, for example. Well, I, have thinking, well, I'm going to do this so that I can have stronger bones.
Yeah, so that I don't develop osteoporosis.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the words we
exactly.
use, the words we tell ourselves are really important, and they
Oh,
come a
so
lot from
important.
the environment, right? And so, yeah, if we're being told, oh, you're old, your bones are weak, or you've gone through menopause, therefore you're going to have bone loss, or the number one reason that people die is from hip fracture. Be careful. Don't climb up a ladder. I understand there's adaptations. Maybe we weren't what we were when we were 20 or 30, but that doesn't mean we can't do it. So
Ex- yeah.
can we talk a little bit about that? Because I do think what I have found personally, I'm in much better shape now than I was when I was in my 20s, right? I feel I almost look better. Well, I can't say I look better. I mean, I look pretty darn good in my 20s, but I don't know. I don't know. I look different, but I think more confident. I think there's more from inside. There's more glow from me in my 40s than there was in my 20s. And when I went back into dance, it took me a while to figure out, okay, what is my body allowing me to do now? What do I have to strengthen? Don't go full bore like 20s right away, like feel it out. And then it turned out I could do more now than I could in my 20s. But I did have to go through that moment of like, okay, let's not go crazy. Let's at least listen to the body. So, what is your advice on that? Because your body does change. It's not like you have the same body you had when you were 25, but that doesn't mean it's not strong, right?
Yes, and you can learn, and it starts with successive approximations to your goal. So I remember when I was in my 40s
Mm-hmm.
and early 50s, and my older daughter was a performer in music theater, was sometimes homeschooled. And so I would go to a lot of dance classes with her, and I would often take those classes. And I remember that part of the warm up routine was going into a split. And I
Yeah.
couldn't get all the way down to the floor. But I kept practicing and practicing, taking all these classes, and then in yoga, going into, and one day I did it, and I was like, yeah, and I do them every day. And
Wow.
my ability to do them has not changed because I keep practicing. So if you don't practice, so there are certain movements in yoga, for example, some certain
Mm-hmm.
arm balances. When I try and revisit those, if I haven't done it for a long time, then yeah, I can't get into the pose. But the ones that I do every day, so I do it's a crow pose, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and you're putting your legs on your upper arms. But I do that every single day, so I can do it. I
Yeah.
do handstands every single day. It's muscle
Wow.
memory, but if and there was a time where I had broken a metatarsal bone in my foot, and I couldn't do those. And I was worried, like, oh, what if I'll forget how to do it? But the body knows. And it was going back to, yes, I was able to do it again. So if you keep doing it often enough, so as we get older, it is really critical not to stop.
Yeah.
Because if you keep doing them, so my yoga routine, which I've done for so many years, every morning, it's the first thing I do in terms of movement. It is second nature. I can do it in my sleep. The body knows what to do, and some of these poses I've actually gotten much better. So I'm finding that I'm looking at these, and every day that I do this, celebrating, like, yes, I was able to get into this handstand today, and oh, I did it. I took my feet away from the wall for five
Yeah.
seconds more than I did the day before.
Oh, darn it. I'm going to have to start doing handstands now.
They're
I,
fun.
I'm so tall. I've always had
Mm,
issues doing handstands because it's like, I'm 6 feet tall. So the awkwardness of it is a bit awkward,
yeah,
but it's a
yeah,
goal. I'm
yeah.
going to get there. I'm curious, are your parents still alive, or when
No,
did they pass? Because a lot of people would argue, well, you just have the genes. That's
yeah,
why you're okay. And maybe you do. I don't know, but I think we're all born with genes to live.
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think I personally don't believe that our genes determine our longevity. I mean, as long as you take good care of your body, you will be well up until the moment you go. are your parents still alive, or when
Yeah,
did they
so
pass? What's their story?
so my father had rheumatic heart disease
Hmm.
because he had rheumatic fever as a child. They had no antibiotics, and so he passed quite early at 42. So I
Hmm.
lost my dad when I was 9. My mom, I had a lot of courage, and she was an optimist. And no matter how hard her life was, and it was hard raising me, and she had to go back to work, and she didn't have the skill sets to do that, but and she had a lot of health conditions and a lot of the trauma of being a young widow, for example. But we didn't put the pieces together at the
Hmm.
time. But she approached life with optimism. And she would say, every time I get out of bed, I just tell myself it's going to be a good day. As she got older, she would say, I hate talking to the other women in my building. All they want to do is talk about their aches and pains.
Yeah.
And now I am that way. When I get up, I say, today's going to be a good day. And years ago, I would criticize my mother and I would think, wow, that's such a Pollyanna-ish attitude, and she's not really facing,
Yes.
her conditions. But then I'm friends with BJ Fogg, who wrote Tiny Habits, and that's his mantra. When he gets up, that's what he says every day as well. So it's a mindset. It is focusing on what you can control, and you can change things. How we interpret events is critical. And
Yeah.
so, like when I approach a handstand to say, yeah, this is going to feel good, I can do this, as opposed to, oh, I'm afraid, and what if I fall? And if I get into that mindset, then I won't be able to do it. So it
Hmm.
is really focusing on what you can do. But I also want to point out that we can't forget to have prudence. In other words, I'm not going to be reckless. And I've noticed, so
Yeah.
for example, I live close to Lake Michigan, and there's some steep steps going down to a beach, and I'm going to use the handrail
Yeah.
because I don't want to fall, and I'm going to be more cautious. But I was like that even as a little girl. I was the one who was kind of holding back and more cautious. So I will be prudent hiking. For example, when you hike down a mountain,
Mhm.
living in Arizona, it could be those are things that I will be more cautious with, because I am thinking, oh, what if I slide down, and I don't want to do that. So I will be more cautious in
Yeah.
certain things, but it is, again, with prudence, like weighing the risks and knowing
Yeah.
when to pull back if you need to stay safe.
Have you always had this positive outlook, or was this something that you had to change? Was there a moment where you were like, all right, I got to change my life. I got to change what I'm doing? What was child Sandra like
Yeah. Oh, this
versus?
is learned. This
Yeah.
is learned. So I was a really shy, awkward kid, nerd in high school. I was not popular, and I realized that the way out, I didn't have the money to go to college, for example, but I should say my mother didn't. My father died and had no
Mhm.
life insurance because of his heart condition. He couldn't get life insurance. So it
Yeah.
was a real struggle. And I remember thinking, well, my route will be studying as hard as possible so I can get a scholarship. And I ended up doing that. But then in college, with lots of stress of maintaining that scholarship, that full ride, I just got addicted to sweet things, to sugar. And I remember just like typing papers. This was on an old fashioned typewriter,
Yeah.
and having a bag of M&Ms. And just, I mean, that was uncontrolled, and not realizing at the time that it was a physical addiction to sugar, and that hijacks your brain. And so I did
And your
tend to.
joints.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wasn't working out. It was, back in the late 60s, early
Mhm.
70s. And then my first job was in education, in special ed, and these kids were hard to manage. And so we would have snack time, and we used positive reinforcement. In those days, we were using food. So, oh, parents brought in Oreo cookies. Oh, they taste really good. And so I would basically, binge on sugar all day long, and then think, oh, I'll eat healthy. I'll eat carrots, knowing nothing about nutrition at the
Yeah.
time. And then, realizing I would get into bad moods, for example.
Yeah.
But fortunately, when I started to study psychology, I was trained with Dr. Albert Ellis, who was one of the founders of a type of cognitive behavior therapy where you really start
Mhm.
to look at your thought patterns. And are
Yeah.
you catastrophizing? Oh, I should be doing this. I have to do this. This is awful, horrible, terrible. And I learned to manage that. And then when I became a health psychologist, I was personally transformed because in teaching others, I would guide people through relaxation strategies using breathing, biofeedback assisted self-regulation techniques where it would help people to calm themselves. And I was
Yeah.
applying these, I was integrating these mind body medicine strategies with these positive psychology, cognitive therapy strategies. They were remarkably effective. So I was building new neural pathways. But along the
Yeah.
way, I was also starting to move more, doing more
Mhm.
exercise, and wasn't always the right kind. Back in those days, it was cardio, cardio,
Yeah.
cardio. But that all resulted in changing how I was eating as well. So, but spending many years as a vegan and the
Mhm.
disastrous time I was a raw vegan, that was a disaster and not right for me. And so I started changing that as I got older, particularly past 60, where I find now it's critical. There's the only way I can get enough protein is through animal protein.
Yeah. And you were talking about changing your neural pathways, which is
Yes,
always so fascinating to me and something that I fully believe in. I think what we say, the practices, the way that we visualize our life, we can actually change addictions to sugar. We can change
yes,
addictions to substances. We can change addictions to social media. We can change addictions to being a victim. We can
exactly.
change, we can change trauma, reactions to trauma that served us well as children. You know, maybe something happened, we had a protective mechanism, it got us to adulthood, but we can change that by changing our brain. Do you want to talk about changing neural pathways and how to do that?
Yeah, it's just like exercising a muscle. And so maybe you do a new routine at the gym, start to add more weight. And so you notice, oh, your changes. I'm actually, seeing more definition. I have more definition than I had when I was much younger. Well, it's the same thing. You start to, so every time you get upset about something, if I would say things like, so what if you change that what if to so what if you imagine yourself dealing with it? Something that works really well for me is I use perspective. I think that's very
Yeah.
powerful where you're upset about something and now in the scheme of things, the bigger picture, I like to say I get to be stressed about this. Let's say there was some setback at work perhaps. I get
Yeah.
to be stressed about this because if something was worse that was happening to me, to a loved one, for example, then whatever I'm stressing out about and upset about would be inconsequential. And so, therefore, I
Yeah.
have that perspective.
Mhm.
And so I think about and being the age I am, know a lot of people who are no longer here. And I think about how
Yeah.
they suffered and they're not here. Well, I mean, what they wouldn't give to be here back on earth dealing with the stressor that I'm upset about. And so that's
Yeah.
perspective. And you can say, well, I remember this day this incident in 5 years. What about in 10 years? What about in 20 years? Will it really matter? A technique we used to use with clients many years ago is this worth dying over? Because that's what you're doing to yourself. As you are upsetting yourself, you're causing an inflammatory reaction. Is this worth it? That you
Mhm.
maybe you're upset about someone slighted you, for example. I have
Yeah.
friends who can't, an incident happened with a friend of theirs 10 years ago, and they're still holding on to the grudge, for example. Is this important? Is this worth dying over? And they elevate it as if it is, because your body thinks that you're putting yourself into this alarm response. And so also, tuning into those real basic things like we're not breathing properly when we're in that stress state, so taking some time to calm down and stay focused on what really matters. And so but the other thing is sometimes knowing your genetics can be helpful too. So
Yep.
I have that variant that I don't let go of things easily. I make a mistake and I'll be up all night worrying about it. Oh, I made
You're
a
that
mistake. It was,
perfectionist. Yeah.
yeah, that perfection. That's the that variant that you can't clear dopamine easily. So I just
Mhm.
have to be patient. This too shall pass. I'll sit with it for a while, but I've learned how to distraction is really powerful. I used to help
Mhm.
people many years ago who had panic and anxiety. You get yourself into something. It has to be something very active, like
Yeah.
you are engaged in a conversation with somebody, you're solving a problem, you're following a new recipe, for example,
Yeah.
something that you distract yourself with, and like dance. That's what
Dance.
you have to learn that new choreography, and So you're in the moment and you're focused. And so that is the opposite of the stress response.
Yeah, and we do spend our lives in stress response. And then we
Yes.
see and that's why I think part of the reason over 40 people do see more health decline. I don't think it's because our bodies are not okay. I think it's that we are constantly living in a fight or flight. We're constantly worrying about everything and our body doesn't know the difference. It just
Yes.
doesn't know. And you made a great point when you were speaking there that I think about too. I'm like always thinking to myself, what would my 70-year-old self need me to do right now? If I could come back and give myself advice, if I could
Mhm.
go back and give my 20-year-old self advice, what would I say? You know, what am I working towards? Am I working towards being an active adult, an active grandmother, an active great grandmother, or am I working towards disease? And every single choice that's being made throughout the day, am I going to freak out over this? Is it
Mhm.
impacting my sleep? Is it impacting what I'm eating? What behavior am I modeling for my children? You know, when I'm
Mhm.
overreacting to things that aren't important. And I believe holding on to that emotion, which I know you too, that emotion where you don't forgive someone, you don't forgive yourself. uh, You know, all of a sudden we start to see dementia. We start to see cardiovascular disease.
Mhm.
We start to see decline. And then you go to the doctor and they say, well, here's your statin, here's your high blood pressure medication. You're old. This is normal. Just deal with it. And you become more sedentary. Not that they were ever doing handstands, but if they were, they stop, right? They
Right.
stop doing the walkings out of fear. And, oh, well, I'm not sure with this medication if I can eat that or not eat that. Well, there's all these interactions, blah, 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 blah. I see this all the time and it breaks my heart
Yes.
because I lost my dad when he
Mhm.
was, 59 years old to a
Mhm.
stroke. I lost my mom to cancer. I sat with her as she whittled away to nothing as they were telling her to drink Ensure. They didn't talk to her about mindset. They just handed her opioids and said, make sure you're eating, and show up for chemo on time. There was there was no support. And watching that body waste away from a very thin person, she was very thin to begin with, thinner than me, um, made me realize, because she was in her 60s, made me realize the importance of muscle mass as well. And what happens if, God forbid, I'm in my 60s, turns out I have cancer for some reason, and I don't have the muscle mass and the exercise and the nutrition in place to help my body get through that. Like I have every opportunity right now to make that change. I can build muscle every single day. I can eat nutrition. I can have the mindset that I won't get cancer because my body is strong enough to be able to get through anything. And I know you agree with this, and I'm sure that your advice may be different just being 20 some years older than me. But what would you say to that? Is there any advice that you can give? I'm thinking of the people listening that already are on the medications. They've already let that go. Maybe they're in their 60s and they're saying it's too late for me. What advice would you give them?
So the critical factor is what you just said, it's too late for me. That has to be
Yes.
reversed. You
Hmm.
reverse it by saying, in what way is it too late? And the beauty of, for example, you get a health coach who is going to challenge your belief system by listening to you and helping you have that aha moment where you realize it's not too late. I can start. I can get into the gym. Maybe I'll start with a 3 pound weight, but then I'll go up to a 5. And that'll feel so cool when I do it. And then I'll be up to a 10. They have to see their own progress and it has to become habit. It has to go from something I don't think I can
Hmm.
do to, yes, I'll try it, to now I love it and I would feel a loss if I couldn't do it anymore, where they start to see concrete signs. But it is also going from what's wrong with me to what's strong with me and having that sense of, yes, I'm strong. And I could lift. So I do the farmer's carry where you carry, like I use kettlebells. And so when I started, I was so excited that I could carry 25 pounds. And Peter Attia says a woman 40 has to carry 70%. of her body weight for
Uh-huh.
2 minutes or a minute. I forget what it was, but I think it's a minute. And so I was so excited. Oh, I got up to 30 pounds. And then about 2 weeks ago, I'll try I'll try the 35 pound.
Mhm.
And sure, I was able to pick them up and I carried them for 1 minute and set them down. So it's that excitement. And I think that people, they're afraid of it. And so what I would say to that person is, how do you know? Like, prove that you can't do it. Can you prove it? Are you like you're on a witness stand? And where's the proof? That's your idea, but where's the actual proof that you can't do it or you won't work up to doing it in, let's say, a year or so? And we have research that shows that people, even in their 90s, can start a weightlifting program and make good progress. And so it is
Amazing.
that idea that, yes, I'm excited and I'm training for my future self. I'm going to make some of these small changes. And then having the courage. Courage is really important. The courage to say to your doctor, is there something else I could be doing? It's critical if you are on medication to not go off cold turkey, to
Uh-huh.
work with your healthcare practitioner, but to say, I think I there are, what other strategies? What else can you offer me? Do you have a health coach in your office? I think
Mhm.
I'd like to work on eating differently and getting stronger. But
Mhm.
I need the support of a coach. Can you find me one? Is there? And if they say, well, no, well, how about one in the community? Do you know how to help me find a health? You challenge them to say
Yeah.
that this is something that I'm really interested in doing. That happens when you have the sense of self efficacy, this idea that I can take charge of my health. I don't have to just do whatever the doctor says because it might not be right for me. Might be right for someone else, but it doesn't sit right with me. And I know I can make other changes. And I don't want to imply that all medication bad, all
Yeah.
natural, approach is good. Medication has its role. And that's why
Mhm.
you need that practitioner. You need lab work. You need to make that assessment to help to see where you are, but then to have hope and courage to go into the gym to try something new. I was always afraid of the Smith machine where it looks like a little, they
Yeah.
have these big barbells that are like these racks, and you take it off the rack. And so I had one session with a trainer who taught me proper form, and then I was on my own, and it was so scary, like
It
to
is
do
scary.
it, like, and I thought, oh, can I do that? But I worked my way up. So first I started with just the bar and no weight, and then had one plate, and I guess I can
Mhm.
add a 2.5 pound weight. That's not much. And so gradually building up, and now it just feels so empowering to be there. But I think it is so critical. Older women, every time I go into the gym, the women are in the cardio room. They're doing
Yeah.
the elliptical, they're doing the treadmill, which you need cardio, but it's they don't go into the weight room. They're afraid, or if they do, they just pick up the 5 pound weights and do
Yeah, it's
nothing.
intimidating though. Like I walk by the weight room. My kids go to the gym with me. I dance in studios, but I also have a dance class at the gym and there's a huge, everything. And I tend to dance more. I don't tend to love to go to the weights either. I do love Pilates and I have a reformer and I challenge myself there. But it's intimidating, especially when you walk up
Mhm.
and you got all these big dudes lifting things and you're like, I don't know if I should be in this area. It does take a lot of self confidence and a lot of self worth. And I know prior to when my mom died, we would talk a lot about how she was raised, and it was raised like, yeah, women can get a job, but you have to wear all these hats too. Like you still have to take care of the kids, you have to take care of the family, you got to take
Yeah,
care of the job. You have certain things you can do. Yes, you're capable, but you probably should leave that to the men, and I think it's getting over that too. It's getting over this idea that you can't or you shouldn't or you don't belong. That's not your
right,
role. That's not
right.
where you should be. And I would encourage everyone to challenge yourself. I felt really insecure when I walked into my first dance class after all those years, and they didn't have adult dance classes. So I walked into a class with 14 to 16-year-olds, advanced hip hop. And I asked the studio owner, I said, I'm not a beginner. And she goes, well, our beginner classes are like 6 and 7 years old. I said, I'm not a beginner. I'm not, I've done this in the past. I was advanced in the past. I don't even know if I can pick up a routine now, but they put me in with the teens. And I found myself saying, I shouldn't come back. These ladies don't relate to me. They don't. And then I thought, wait a minute. I was a teen once. Like, I know how to do this. I'm just going to listen. I'm going to let them come to me, but I'm going to smile and be friendly and show them I'm approachable. And I'm going to show up and I'm just going to dance and I'm going to laugh at myself. And then I decided I'm going to be a role model. I'm going to be a role model for them about how when you can do anything you want at any time and you can laugh at yourself when you do it and it is okay. And I have developed the biggest reward outside of just now being able to dance 6 hours or more a week with choreo and everything, which is awesome. But the biggest reward is me watching these girls now coming up and talking to me and dancing harder and more full out because they start to go, oh, well, if she can do it and she doesn't care and she's laughing, I can do it. And I don't need to worry about what everyone else is thinking. And I can't think of anything that lifts my soul more. And I would tell you, if I saw you in my weight room, I would be over there like, all right, let's do this. Teach me how to do this because you would be a role model and are a role model for me. So shifting that perspective, right? It's not about you. It's about how can you set an example for future generations? How can you set example for the women around you and the other people around you to stay strong? And it's so inspiring. And I love that about you.
And it's not comparing yourself to others,
Right.
not comparing yourself to anyone else in the gym, in a dance
Mm-hmm.
class. So when I started taking years ago jazz classes
Mm-hmm.
again, and I was going with my daughter, and yes, there were all these professional dancers in the class, and then
Yeah.
there was me. But
Yeah.
giving up that concern about how am I doing compared to others,
Mm-hmm.
and just did what I can do. And now in a ballet class, so I'm in one that is more for people my generation. It's for women over 50. It's a great class. It's women over 50.
Yeah.
And so then, but sometimes I'll go into a regular ballet class and I just say to myself, okay, well, I'll just do bar and then I'll see how I feel. And then
Yeah.
when you come to the center, well, I'll do that first one, doing
Mm-hmm.
tendus, for example. And when it gets to the triple pirouettes, which, I've been trying to do since I was 7 and I still can't do a good pirouette. Okay, I just enjoy watching others and I can just, step out. I don't have to do this. And often with age comes that freedom. Like, I don't have to do that. I don't have to
Yeah.
please anybody. I'm going to do what's right for me. It's that personalized approach that is so critical,
Yeah.
and accept small steps towards change.
And letting go of all the other
Yes.
things that you don't have to hold on to, right? I think I was having an interview yesterday and we were talking about if you don't want to go to the PTA meeting, don't go. You can make that choice. And I think we
Yes.
do that when we're younger, and as we get older we're like, nope, forget it. I'm not going to try to do that. That's ridiculous. I think that's great, and I wish that women would do that when they were younger and put up those boundaries sooner about what you really want to do and what you don't. Are you going to come dance with me sometime?
Oh, we should. I know. I'd love to do that.
With the
Yeah.
14-year-olds? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I have a few adult classes now, but we should dance together
That would
sometime.
be fun. I would love that.
That would be a lot of fun. So now how many health coaches have you trained?
If claim close to 5,000.
Wow.
Yes.
I mean, you
Around the
are
world.
literally changing health. Because like you said, when you go to a doctor and you say, hey, do you have a health coach? Do you have someone, since you don't know how to keep me in longevity, do you have anyone that I can reach out to and talk to? And you have helped train over 5,000 health coaches that are out there in the world doing this exact thing. And I have a health coach personally. I just hired one for my practice.
Yay.
And it has been, in just a week, has been game changing, not only for my clients who are already taking advantage, but, and I'm not even, I'm trained in all that, but just having that support and somebody that's there as a cheerleader and someone else on my team so far has been pivotal. And I cannot wait to see how that impacts my patients even more, than even I can impact. And it's serving so many more people. So tell people about this institute. And did you just start creating it? Like you just said, this is what I want to do? Because you were like a day trader. I mean, you did all sorts of things and a teacher. And so
Yeah.
tell people where they find you and what you've created, because that way they can hopefully connect their physicians and their caregivers with a way to get a health coach so that people can actually get well.
So I had been practicing as a psychologist, and my specialty was health. So I would see people with physical conditions like migraines, like IBS, and I would pull together all of these tools that I had. Some came from cognitive therapy, where you stop catastrophizing and you change your thoughts to more manageable, realistic ones. I would integrate that with breath work, with other relaxation techniques where they feel better in their own bodies. I would integrate that with positive psychology, which is feeling again, what's wrong with you? What's right with you? Not you're broken and you have to be fixed by somebody.
Yeah.
And then learning functional medicine, which is root cause and what is driving those root causes, which typically are inflammatory states. It's your lifestyle, it's what you're eating or not eating, it's your lack of sleep, it's exercising that might be lacking in your life, or meaning and purpose, most importantly, in relationships, how you deal with stressors. And so these were things I was helping people with as a psychologist. And then as I was training in functional medicine, approached the Institute for Functional Medicine, where I had trained, about creating a health coaching program. And so our school, it's all remote. It is a 12-month, leads to certification, and it is learning those basic functional medicine principles that come from IFM, Institute for Functional Medicine, taught by their faculty, and then bringing in all of the elements of coaching, which is positive psychology, and coaches equipped to help people with mind-body medicine strategies, but most importantly, training people to be listeners. And what happens is when you train to become a coach, you are personally transformed, because the act of coaching is so powerful that you yourself are now a better listener, a better communicator, and that makes a huge difference in your own life and well-being.
Yeah.
So it's my passion, it is my mission and purpose to see a health coach in every office, or people who are working on their own to get referrals from, to be aligned, so that your care team truly is caring for you, and not just telling you what to do, or increasingly you don't have a team because there's such a shortage of professionals. You can't get in to see people, and you are just lost, floundering, and getting sicker and sicker. And I want to prevent that.
And you
So,
you
yes.
are. And I commend you so much. And where can people learn more about this?
Yeah, this is functionalmedicinecoaching.org. They can go on Instagram, Functional Med Coach. My personal profile is Dr. Sandy, DrSandi. And happy to love to have you reach out with questions. We need millions more health coaches. And
We do. We do. We do.
Yeah.
And, I don't think everyone really understands what a health coach is in the general community. They think, oh, it's just somebody that like reminds you to eat right.
Right.
No, I mean, these functional health coaches are teaching you how to eat, what to eat, when to eat. They're teaching you how to do these shifts in your mindset, and they're doing it in a personalized way, custom to you. And there's the difference. It's not an in the box thing. It's an out of the box thing. And my dog agrees. She is snoring. Can you hear her?
Oh.
She's just, if you hear
That's
this
cute.
on the recording, it is my French bulldog who is definitely has something to say about this topic. But yeah, and it's not enough. And even as a physician, it's not enough to just have the physician, because we have our lane, and we know, I mean, as a naturopath, I know mindset, I know nutrition and all of that, but there are certain things that I know that are kind of in my wheelhouse, and having that support of a health coach, it's not even about supporting me. It's about supporting my patient at a whole nother level, which then helps them commit to what I'm trying to lay out for them.
Yeah.
And the best result is happy doctor and happy patient. And I look at our medical system right now, and the gaslighting and the ageism and the protocols that everyone gets put into. The doctors aren't happy either.
No,
I don't
burned
think
out,
they want
stressed.
to ignore you. I really don't. I don't think that you go in there and they're like, oh, great, here she comes. I think they're so stressed. Have so little time to talk to you. They can't possibly get there as much as they want to.
That's so
And
true.
I want to support the doctors as well, because we collectively as a community have the ability to change medicine in every
Absolutely.
way.
That is so true.
And what you have developed so incredibly important. So thank you for your
Oh,
commitment to our health. Thank you. And thank you for being here and sharing your wisdom. And you do, we look like we're the same age. You do
oh.
not look, you are not, I mean, I'm going to see you in the gym sometime and I'm going to have to call you up and have you challenge me to get on those weights more. So I'm going to work on that.
What is real in the mind is real in the body. And so you have that reality of where you want to be. You choose where you would like to be. You choose your feelings and you make that happen. And it may seem like, oh, it can't happen, but it really does. And so every thought, every emotion you experience is either inflammatory or anti-inflammatory. You can make that change. You can change every aspect of your life. And it's not depending on others to change or circumstances, but really having the sense that I can go out and I can make significant differences.
We can. I
Yeah.
love it.
So,
Thank you so much for
oh,
being here
thank
today.
you.
Thank you.
It's
Thank you.
been
Thank you. Thank you.
awesome. Thank you.
And we'll be dancing together soon.
Yes. Oh, can't wait.